I want to do a series about faith because every so often you need to reboot your life, right? I found that with my computer. I accidentally leave it on all the time. And then after a while it like does crazy things, and then I have to like turn it off completely, and then I need to reboot it. And we think about our life of faith and we just expect it to kind of like chug along. But actually every so often we need to reboot, reinvest, rediscover our faith. But most importantly, find a faith that works. You know, we have all kinds of concepts about what faith is supposed to be like. Like, I'm just like automatically, magically, somehow meant to believe. And if it's not like that, then I guess I don't have faith. And if I don't have faith, well, I guess it doesn't matter, and then God doesn't exist, and you kind of go down that road. So finding a faith that works for your life is incredibly important, and that's what we're talking about in this series. And in last week's message, we had, now you believe, so what? Because a lot of people say they believe in God, but if it doesn't impact your life in a substantial way, if it doesn't change the way you behave, if it doesn't change the way you think, then is it truly meaningful? So the now what really matters. Well, we've decided that we do believe, and we have our now what. So now I want to like dig a little deeper, and I want to talk about how to live with God on a daily basis, and how to find the energy for your life of faith that you can continue. Because I know you've all been, have you ever like faced that moment where you say, I think I tried until I almost died? Or maybe you did that, right? So how do you get yourself out of that place? Or if you've never been in that place, how about you never visit that place? That would be a good thing, right? So we want to find out, like, how do we find energy for our life of faith? Does everybody want to know about that?
Yes.
I do. So I want to start with just a little quote from a message by Reverend Moon. He said, "What is the path of faith? If a person can sense something from the invisible world more strongly than from the visible world, that person will never be exhausted." So I would like to propose to you that when you get exhausted, it's kind of like you've lost touch with that invisible world. You've lost touch with the vision, with the energy, with the kind of spiritual like energy that comes from being in touch with that invisible world. The external world seeks for the visible and revolves around it, but the path of faith pursues what is invisible. Therefore, when you're so caught up in the external world that you lose sight of your spiritual goal and purpose, you will feel drained of energy in your life of faith. That's an easy place to be, right? Because you get so caught up in the externals of things. And some of it you can't even help. You have to go to work. You know, you have to wash the car. Although the other day I thought, like, wow, when did I last wash the car? It rains. Thank you, God. So I've avoided washing the car, right? But there are certain external things that you have to take care of and pay attention to. But if you get too involved in that world and lose sight of the invisible world, you run out of energy pretty soon. And that's why, you know, our faith matters. That's why having a faith community really does matter. So if you're feeling a little drained, what is your expectation? Are you relying on something external? I know every morning I rely on a cup of coffee. Somehow I don't feel all together till I've had that Dunkin' Donuts, right? Good thing Savio's not here. It would be, you know, he wouldn't like that. But we rely on something external. So we have to also learn how to rely on something internal to power our life of faith. I want to talk a little bit about Reverend Moon's life because out of all the people that I have ever known, he was the most energetic and the most invested in his life of faith. You know, talk about like being on steroids in terms of investment and caring for and taking responsibility. He had the most effort and also the most sincerity in his relationship with God. And when he talked about a life of faith, he said, a life of faith must be fervent. In other words, you can't just be casual about it. Because if you're casual about it, guess what? You'll have a casual life of faith. So he said, be fervent. Its fervor must exceed a hungry person's craving for food or the desperate heart of a parent looking for their lost child. This is because a life of faith pursues the goal of faith, which is not visible to the eyes. It is God's will visible? God's will remains invisible until it is realized through human beings. Now that to me was a very interesting sentence. Because we think, oh, like somehow I'm going to magically know God's will. But actually he's saying, you know, God's will be invisible to you until you see it manifested through another person's life. So if you think your kids are waiting for you to see God's will, maybe they're waiting to see it manifested in your life. Or your friend, you're waiting for your friend to kind of suddenly get God's will. They're waiting to see it manifested in your life because that's how God's will manifests itself. It's not like in a written word. It's not like something that just like magically appears. I thought that was so important, that point. In the world around us, people plan, design, budget for, and then execute a project. But God's will is neither visible nor tangible. It's difficult to seek for the invisible world and substantiate its objectives in reality. Now, I've thought about the great people in history. Like, how do we even know what God's will is? But when you see it manifested in someone's life, suddenly it resonates and you go like, yes, that's God's will. So God's will is for the equality of the races. How did we see that? How do we understand God's will about that? It's because we saw it in Martin Luther King. Or, you know, what's God's will? That actually all conflict should be resolved peacefully. How do we know that? Because we saw it in Gandhi. Think about great people in history that manifested God's will. We could like feel it in their life. And then because we felt it in their life and it resonated with something inside our soul, we could go, yeah, that's God's will. Important, right? That's why it like matters who we are and how we deal with life. Because actually we manifest God's will and that's how we know it to be true. You know, our ideals, you know, we resonate with things when we see it in front of us, right? So our daily lives really do matter. It matters that we manifest God's will in our family. It matters that we manifest God's will in the workplace. Why not allow others to see God's will in our lives? If you think about it, that's exciting. A life of faith should be exciting. It should be exciting to you and it should be exciting to the people around you. Because you have these aha moments. And that's what gives you power, you know, and stamina, if you like, right? Many times when we think about faith traditions, we think about following God. You know, like if you look at all the world's religions, I think the majority of them, or the supermajority of them say, you must follow, right? So we're all looking to follow something. But God doesn't want a bunch of followers. We're co-creators with God. So actually, God is also discovering his will in your life. Because then he sees it, he goes, yes, you know, that's what I meant. That's what I meant love was meant to be like. That's what I meant righteousness was meant to be like. So actually in our lives, God also finds power and hope because we're co-creators together with God. We're not just literally followers. He doesn't want a bunch of people just following. Think about you. If you inspired other people, would you want them just to like follow behind you the whole time going like, oh, we're following Heather. She's really good. No, everybody wants to work together with other people to make something totally awesome happen, right? And it's the same with God. You know, we have an understanding of God that I think is maybe a little bit different, but it's very interesting. We think of God as a family God. Why does it matter that God is a family God? Because, you know, some people think of God maybe as a powerful God, a God of righteousness, a leader of justice. Why does it matter that we think of God as a family God? It's because in a family, everybody matters. You kick one person out of the family and suddenly there's a hole there. It doesn't feel right anymore. You know, there's an emptiness that you cannot replace by anyone else. Right? That's why it matters that we see God as a family God, because he's looking to us and we're looking to him. In a family, can the parents be happy without the children, or the children happy without the parents? No. So actually, God can't be happy without us, and we can't be happy without God. We need each other. So I want to talk about living with God. You know, Reverend and Mrs. Moon aren't stuck in the world of theology. Like many times religion gets just stuck in theology, and because they're stuck in theology, they can't see anything beyond it. I would like to replace theology with loveology, because I think it would be closer to God's heart. You know, God can sometimes say like, well, who cares about all this biblical history, or who cares about all this, right? Because theology ultimately isn't satisfying, but love is. So I think that actually God would prefer that we studied loveology more than we studied theology, right? You know, one thing that I think is also unique to Reverend and Mrs. Moon's ministry is this concept of liberating God. In the political world, we hear about people liberating other people, and it's something we want to see because we hate to see injustice in the world. When I think what's going on in the Middle East right now and all the suffering that is there, I feel so angry sometimes, and you want to bring liberation to those people. But who has thought about liberating God? And then when we think about liberating God, we think, well, maybe that's something somebody great can do, right? Have you ever watched a film like Schindler's List or the movie Valor? I don't know if any of you watched Valor here. I know I have. I look at it and I wonder, like, wow, could I have done that? Could I have thrown my body over a grenade to protect other people? Could I have gone through whatever Schlinder had to go through in order to free the Jewish people that were under his care? And maybe the most honest answer would be, I don't know. I would like to think I could. And it's amazing to me what people can do when they're put in the most difficult of circumstances. But we don't know until we're there. And so we might ask ourselves, well, can I liberate God? Like, how would I do that? Isn't that something incredibly righteous, amazing people did? But I want to put it to you, because God is a family God, actually all of us need to liberate God's heart, because actually every child matters. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we might liberate God's heart. That's what I mean by faith that works. Because faith should be active. So are you interested in how you can liberate God's heart? Because actually it will transform your life. It will transform God's life, but it will also transform your life. Well, the first thing is, when you feel neglected, who here has felt neglected? Yes, me too. Thank you for being honest. Yes. Right? Everyone feels neglected at some point or other. Right? But instead of being stuck in your emotions about being neglected, how about you simply try to forget about that and let God know that you care, because God has felt neglected throughout human history. Think about all the people who, worse than saying God doesn't exist, just simply don't care, right? So God could say, I've been neglected. We have our own experiences. You know, I have a coffee table top that has been sitting in my house for 10 years. It's a beautiful marquetry tabletop coffee something, you know what I mean, but it has no legs. It was given to me as a piece of marquetry to make a coffee table. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. So for 10 years it stood in the hallway. And every so often I go, could someone like add the legs and like make a coffee table? My husband's built a house, he could add legs, right, technically. And then I went to my son-in-law, because my son-in-law does carpentry. And I kind of hinted I'd like this made into a coffee table. It hasn't happened yet. And then the other week it was my son's birthday, and he came home and he got a special kind of skill saw for his birthday, and I go, oh, we could make the coffee table. And then my husband goes, but I'm going to do that. And I go, but it hasn't happened in 10 years, you know? But all this time I've been feeling neglected, you know, like, why can't, like, is that such a hard thing to do, to make this into a coffee? Well, apparently it is, I guess, I don't know. But the point is, you know, you can wallow in how neglected you are. Or you can understand that God has been neglected too.